All right. Well, I've had a few videos pertaining to the large knife type of philosophy, and they were geared a little bit more towards doing some chopping and a little bit of splitting. And I've used the Kabar Becker BK9 for those videos. I find it to be a superb knife, and I have a multitude of large knives, and this one still always comes out on top. But one of the things that sometimes, and I find very rarely, with patience and enough planning, you can almost get away without ever making feather sticks. But let's just say that you have to, but it's also good to hone in on your skill and do these things. And so the thought behind a large knife doing these tasks can be a little bit daunting. Now, you can use any of these tools. You can use a hatchet, your pocket knife, and all these other things. But we're talking about the large knife. And sometimes you have to take things differently. And here was a feather stick I had made the other day, sitting down and drawing the wood towards me and not moving the knife at all. As you can see, it's quite nice. It didn't take too long to make. Of course, it's not going to be as easy as your, using your jackknife or your Mora knife or anything like that. It's a large tool. And many times, it's going to be a lot heavier than the feather stick that you're going to have in the other hand. So it can make a lot of sense to just move the wood. So out in the woods, we have things where maybe, at least where I'm from, there can be a lot of, wet ground, deep snow, and these things. But the same philosophy of drawing the knife towards us can also work like this here, just using this tree. All right, I see people get down on one knee and brace the knife up against their knee. I've never been too big of a fan of that, for the purpose of, it usually sort of hurts the knee a little bit. Jamming the spine of a knife up against it while you plane wood. All right. So we have that method. I always prefer to stand to do these things because I can also shelter these types of things, right? Or even work in close proximities and still perform these certain tasks. I don't want to have to get down on the ground to do these things. Now, another one that I had learned from observing a good friend of mine, a woods bum friend of mine, is he's very fond of the BK9, and he will draw the knife towards him like this, and that works just fine as well. As I said, there's a lot of different methods here that we can use, but it makes a knife like this far more manageable. If I don't have to squat down and get into uncomfortable angles in these types of things, I would rather not. I would rather not have to do that. And given the choice, I definitely would not want to have to constantly be using my knife. Now, I have done them in this manner, like this. Usually I'll pick a longer piece of wood so it's out in front of me a little bit more. Though there is this method as well. This one here appears to be the easiest, and all you got to do is just find a good tree, and you really have a lot of control. And another tip sometimes, especially when you're drawing harder wood like this to plane, which is primarily what I sort of have more available, is, edges from splitting this stuff down like this can sometimes cut your hand. Or just dig into your hand, perhaps make it a little bit uncomfortable. But, we can keep working on this here just a little bit more. But when it comes to having something large on your hip, it can be very advantageous out there, out in the woods. You have to have the appropriate tools for whatever it is that you're doing. If you're, whitetail hunting, do it up, man. Try to get good at using a tool like this. I don't know why someone couldn't. Of course, a smaller knife's going to be easier. And as I've said earlier, of course, a smaller knife's going to make feather sticks easier. You're not going to have to really require, as much skill or using as many stabilizing muscles to control heavier objects. But the whole point of it is to have something that you can have with you that can chop the stick, that can split the stick, that can feather the stick, that can pull your ferrocerium rod for fire, or that you can strike with your flint and steel to make fire. Either way, these knives are very, very viable options. I've said that before, and many people do agree, but there is always that other community that says, no, you can't use that, or no, you shouldn't use that. In certain aspects, I do agree with that. I am very, very partial to an axe. It's just really what I'm very, very used to and comfortable with using. But when you don't look at this tool as chopping like an axe or a hatchet, it creates a completely different realm in which you operate with this. And it makes a lot of knife chores easier, over using the smaller 4-5-inch belt knives. Getting a knife like this that's made well. Many people, I don't believe, have a large knife that is made or honed well and comfortable to use, and so they dismiss it as it doesn't do this or that well. Large knives are a little bit more expensive and a little bit more daunting to use, and it can turn some people away. But if you have a passion for them, as I do, you will find that you can really get things going with them. So thanks for staying tuned, in touch, if you will, and take care. Talk to you later.